Hi, this is the culminating assignment for 5P84 Approaches to Professional Development. This video is a reflective portfolio outlining my learning over the past term. Throughout the course of this video, I'll be first looking at evaluating the professional development plan and goal that I set out at the beginning of the course. Part 2, I'll look at my changing perspectives over the duration of the course by examining the key learnings from our readings and workshops and class discussions. Part 3 of this video, I'll examine what's missing and what my next steps and interests are based on what I learned in this course. And Part 4, I'll conclude my thinking and summarize the video. At the beginning of this course, we set out a goal for ourselves for what we wanted to learn and what we're hoping to get out of this course. My goal was pretty straightforward. I wanted to learn to provide meaningful professional development for high school teachers. I was thinking about wanting to walk away with the skills so I could lead a good professional development session with high school teachers. But what really happened was a whole lot more interesting and engaging than meeting that simple goal. I ended up somewhere a little bit different, but I'm pretty sure that's how most educational adventures should end up anyway. So did I reach my goal? Well, not really. I'm not sure that I'm walking away with a back pocket full of strategies and skills to be able to lead an effective session of PD for high school teachers. But I think in another way, I sort of did reach my goal. I think I'm much better prepared to lead professional development by understanding a deeper sense of what's important in doing professional development, knowing myself, and moving forward with peers towards supporting better student success. My original goal, I think, was pretty skill-based and very simplistic. What I'm working on and working through with my reflections and looking at how my perspectives have changed is much more complex and interesting and in-depth understanding of what I can bring to a professional development session. So it's going to look at who I need to be, what I need to be able to do, and how I'm going to do it when leading professional development. So did I meet my goal? Well, maybe I didn't reach my goal as I originally had articulated it, but I think that anytime your goals are enlarged by learning that happens throughout the course of a term or a year or your life, that's probably a good thing. So, moving on to part 2, looking at my changing perspectives and key learnings over the course of this term. I'm going to first look at a shift, what has changed my thinking, and then discuss how do I know that it's changed in my thinking and how can I use this. The first shift of 3 that I'm going to talk about today surrounds who to be as someone who provides professional development. Focusing on skills narrows it down to what I can do right, but having a mindset covers everything. I wanted the skills to walk away an excellent developer and conveyor of professional development, but instead I found that to develop the skills, I first need to have the mindset. In her book called Mindset, Carol Dweck writes that becoming is better than being. She goes on to explain that people with a growth mindset are all about stretching themselves and sticking to it. Let's say that a professional development skill wasn't coming to me naturally. Having a growth mindset would mean that I wasn't phased, but further motivated, seeing the rich learning opportunity ahead. Having a growth mindset is all about believing your brain can improve and you can become better and smarter at things. People with growth mindsets admit and correct deficiencies. They're obsessed with improvement, and they have a passion and desire to get things done, which to me sounds a whole lot more meaningful and rich than simply wanting to develop some professional development delivery skills. How do I know that I have changed my thinking this way? Well, I think after examining where I ended up and being happy and excited about that, despite it not being my original plan, shows that I have a growth mindset where my goals and thinking developed as time passed. How can I use a growth mindset to change myself, to become the best version of myself, to ensure I'm pushing forward, to cultivate a spirit for learning and set an example for others, and to learn from setbacks? When you hit a brick wall, that can be a very effective time to learn and continue to grow and develop yourself. The next shift in thinking that I had was about how to do professional development. I started thinking it was all about educating others and ended up at the end of the course thinking deeply about the concept of withness. In his article, Organizing for Professional Learning Communities, Ferguson writes that one-time workshops are not effective for professional development. Based on this, we had a class discussion about how moment-based professional development is no longer effective and we're moving towards ongoing development in learning communities. In the article Death to the Syllabus, Singham writes, "Students act the way they do because we treat them the way we do." I thought this was a pretty powerful sentence, and reflecting on it made me think that if this is true for students and teachers, why wouldn't this be true with administration or coaches or leadership and staff? It's important that we're intentional and understand where the teachers are coming from so we can support them. In facing the challenge of change, Tribus writes, "Create a vision for change with those who will implement it." This makes a lot of sense, and it makes me ask the question, so then what does withness look like? In his writing, Restorative Justice in Everyday Life, Wachtell creates a quadrant that shows 4 different ways to approach working with people. The way I was first introduced to this was working with students, but I found it was meaningful to think about working with staff as well in the context of professional development. On the bottom axis, we go from low support to high support, and the side axis, we go from low expectations to high expectations. In the low support, low expectation quadrant, this is where learning generally doesn't take place. Without support and without expectation, not a lot of things happen. In high support, low expectation, this is often where teachers do learning for students, perhaps without the balance of support and expectation. In high expectation, low support, we think of teachers as teaching to students without providing the support they need to be successful. And in high expectation, high support, that's where we find withness. In the not quadrant, people aren't learning. In the for quadrant, my guess is we'd find teachers involved in professional development quite disengaged. In the to quadrant of high expectation, low support, I think we see the old understanding of the sage on the stage, or the idea that the teacher is the holder of all knowledge. The person leading the professional development is the one who's going to impart the knowledge. The high expectation, high support quadrant is where withness takes place. And that is where we can push and challenge and encourage people to grow by providing high support and having high expectations for them. So withness is high support and high expectation. How do I know that my thinking has changed in this? I've seen a shift in the role, in my perception of the role of professional development practitioner. I've seen that it's not just the person up there imparting information, but as we think in the classroom, a co-learner supporting learning. Secondly, in class, I've been using this framework to make my decisions based on witness with my students, and I've found it to be a very compelling and pedagogically challenging practice. How can I use this? I think there's so many beautiful outcomes to the idea of witness. Building community, building relationship, creating a positive culture, and supporting those that you work with. Through witness, you create fertile ground for all of those things to grow and blossom. The third shift in my thinking is, what will I need to do this? And coming into this course, I would have said I need competence to be able to do professional development. But after this course, I now believe it's more important to have courage. That's of greater value than basic competence. In the book Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer, he writes that we can learn as much about our nature by running into our limits as by experiencing our full potentials. Carol Dweck, in her book on mindset, encourages us to seek experiences that will stretch us. And I can't help but think that the world would be pretty small if I only engaged in things that I was 100% comfortable with. Dweck says that with a growth mindset, leaders are called to have courage to be open to other ways of thinking. They should welcome change, and they should embrace new ideas. How do I know that I have changed my thinking in this way? I've realized that over the course of this term, I've worried less and less about having the skills. I've been more peaceful about it. And through the articles and class discussion, I see courage as what really moves us forward. How can I use it? I can use the courage to help affect real change. I can stand up to things that aren't useful or working, even if it's how things have always been done, and not being afraid to change it. The next part of my reflective portfolio looks at what's missing from my learning and what my next steps are. In our Connected Learning seminar, we talked briefly about some of the exciting things that are happening in some innovative school practices and buildings. I'm curious what truly innovative things are happening around professional development. I want to further research the concept of flat organizations that are based around a central core and aren't based on the hierarchy model. This brings us to the last part of the portfolio, the conclusion. Reflecting back on my learning and changing perspectives, I realized I wanted skills, but now know that I needed a mindset. I thought my role would be to educate, but realized that it's about a learning journey with others. And instead of worrying about competence, I can move forward with courage in asking tough questions about student learning and being willing to challenge the way we've always done things to push things forward for student success. Knight, in his article, What Good Coaches Do, wrote, "Be more concerned about getting things right than about being right." This quote summed up for me my learning from this term. This quote intersects with a growth mindset, because with a growth mindset, you're very rarely concerned about being right as much as growing and developing. This quote points out that witness means it's not all about you, and having courage means doing what's best for students and what's best for staff and the people you're supporting through professional development. Thanks for listening in as I chronicled my learning over this term. Do 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 do.